All right, off the bench, we are back. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here. Of course, talking a lot of Reds today. We spent a lot of time, and rightfully so, on the Bengals coming out of the NFL draft on yesterday's show, and we'll dive in to more Bengals talk with Charlie coming up here in just a few moments. But Charlie Goldsmith giving us some time as we kick things off. Charlie, first of all, we appreciate you giving us some time. I know things are busy right now and hectic. The Reds are rolling. Obviously, a lot of coverage with the draft with the Bengals, which we'll touch on in a moment. But help us out right now. You're coming in as we're having the debate about the Reds offensively. I mean, they are right there at the top. I mean, whether it's top 5, top 6, top 10 in so many major offensive statistical categories. I know we're wrapping up the month of April, but at this point right now, how much do you buy into just how good of an offensive unit this team is? A team that identity seems to be on the pitching side, but I think that's overshadowing just how good this team's been offensively, which is wild considering how poor they started the month of April.
Yeah, the offense has an identity. It's clearly, hit over power. It's clearly quality at bats and kind of a professionalism, gritty approach as opposed to kind of selling out for the long ball. And they seem to have kind of just settled in. New coaching staff, new hitting staff, a couple new pieces. Everyone's kind of just settled into their roles. Now, is this a top 10 offense? They've got more to prove in that regard. But I think this is a solid offense with solid pieces, with terrific upside, even with Matt McLain and Elly De La Cruz, who truly haven't gotten rolling yet. And then there's some real depth here as well. So it's definitely exceeded my expectations.
Noel Marte has been, I would say, maybe the biggest part of him and Austin Hayes. I guess you could give it to either one of them. Would be the largest part of the Reds' offensive success of the past 5 games. Where did Noel Marte find whatever he's found here? He's struggled, in every level of baseball for about a year, and then he comes up this season and it looks like a completely different player. Where did he find this?
And I mean this as a compliment. It's as surprised as I've been by a player in a while. Noel Marte was not in consideration to make the team, really. He was called up to ride the bench for 5 days, basically, as Matt McLain had that minor hamstring injury. But then he played that one Saturday, and they liked what they saw, and then he got another call up a bit later, and he's run with it. My favorite story here is it was in Baltimore the day before the crazy, 6-hit or 5-hit, I think he had, 7 RBI game. And he's doing a long batting practice, and behind the cage are Nick Krall, Chris Valaika, assistant coach Mike Napoli. And I'm going to demonstrate this. Noel Marte, when he's bad, has a high one-handed follow-through, and he slips off his back foot. When he's staying through the ball, when he's hitting the ball the other way, it's a much lower follow-through, and it's like this. And so what I saw in that batting practice was Mike Napoli pull him aside and explain that to him. And Krall and Valaika were nodding along. They're like, man, this is good stuff. And Noel, he's repeating that. He's trying to get that muscle memory. And then he has this big game in Baltimore. And to kind of celebrate everything that was going on after that grand slam, even though it was against a position player, Mike Napoli is parading around the dugout like this to show, hey, there it is. And he's been on a roll ever since. Sometimes it can be something that simple, being such a big difference.
Do you think that it's possible, and again, I don't want to focus on the negatives too much today, but Will Benson's been tearing it up in AAA. Can we see an adjustment from that with Will Benson, who's been absolutely slaughtering down in Louisville? Can he come up and maybe work with Napoli and get some adjustments himself?
He's made some adjustments. There's been a lot of talk about the way he's using his hands, and that kind of showed up here. Where Will Benson is he's kind of the up-down outfielder on this team between AAA and Louisville. We saw that when they called him up the first time. Now, if he got another opportunity, he'd have to take advantage of it, just like Noel Marte did. It'd probably take an injury or something for that to happen, but credit to him what he's doing in AAA.
When you look at Jamir Candelario, I don't want to focus too much on the negatives, but when you look at Jamir Candelario, do you think there's any bit of life left there, or do you think this is the end, what we're seeing right now, of Jamir Candelario's time in Cincinnati?
I'm trying to think what the low points of the 2024 Reds were from a depth perspective. I remember one game where Levi Jordan and Santiago Espinal were in the outfield. Depth is the key. So last year, for example, remember the Reds were off to a strong start, and then they had all these injuries. CES, Friedel's already here, but then he came back and got hurt again. There were a couple other guys, and all of a sudden, Edwin Rios was up. You don't remember who that is. Injuries are such a big deal that depth is so significant that Jeimer will get another opportunity. Whether it's, Fraley should be fine, but yesterday was a reminder, that easily could have been Jeimer filling in the lineup after Fraley got scratched with that quad contusion. So Candelario is the most feel-based hitter I've ever been around, and maybe he just gets hot and is in the right state of mind. And I mean, we did see that last year. It definitely is more feel over mechanics with him. They're trying to get his bat speed up, but that's got to happen. Definitely concerning. I mean, they benched him, but I wouldn't give up on him because the Reds' AAA depth is I'm not encouraged by it at all.
Yeah.
So if an injury or two did happen, you do want to have Jeimer as a guy who you could call upon.
Spencer Steer's starting to find a little bit that, the batting average slowly starting to climb up. I know they played Colorado. I know they're not playing the best pitching staffs in the world. But do you have confidence that Spencer Steer is going to be able to find probably not who he was last year, but maybe a little bit of it? Probably not the 90 RBI guy that he was, but I don't know, some semblance of who he was the last 2 years.
Yeah, there are guys I'm less confident in. There are guys I'm more confident in. I'm a big Spencer Steer guy, and frankly, most of the Reds clubhouse are big Spencer Steer people. Like I was talking to a veteran last week about kind of the stars of the team, and he just threw in Steer. One of the vets threw in Steer right next to. He said, "Oh yeah, Elly, Hunter, McLain, and Steer." Like he didn't even think twice about it. That is the reputation that Steer has around the league. I think he's tangibly getting more comfortable. I'm buying Spencer Steer stock. He looks a lot better. I give him a long runway to work through whatever he needs to work through because I think he's that good of a player.
The dynamics of the bullpen. I know Alexis Diaz didn't start with the Reds, and maybe he has lost his closer role altogether with Pagan getting his 8th save last night. Do you like the dynamic of where this bullpen is? I know coming into the year there was probably some doubts. Not a ton of names, probably a lot of Reds fans were comfortable with. But now we're a month into the season, and I feel like the Reds have one of the stronger bullpens in baseball.
I absolutely love what we're seeing from the back three. Ashcraft. I mean, what more can you say? I have owned all of the Tony Santian stock since 2021. I have the receipts to back that up, and I'm now, this is my life. Whatever that LeBron James meme is, like I'm now winning on that stock. And then Pagan. I mean, what more can you say about Pagan as well? Now, what I am concerned about is kind of the flip side, the back nine of this bullpen, or the front nine, whatever you want to say, of this bullpen. Look at the games the Reds have lost this season. What you'll probably see is the starter having a short start and then seeing some of those front-end guys have to pitch more than you'd want them to. A guy I'll mention, like, for example, is Taylor Rogers, who they have used situationally against left-handers in games they're trailing. You'd like to see Taylor Rogers being a bit more of a high-leverage role. I'm concerned with Alexis Diaz. Yes, great job getting the 8th inning in Colorado the other day. You need to see a lot more of that because everything else up to this point had been concerning with Alexis Diaz. Jabot's hurt. He was one of their more consistent strike throwers. You love Brent Suter, but his role is what it is. Like, you'd want to see more from the front of the Reds bullpen. Yeah. That is one of my more concerning parts of the roster now. But one of the stories of the season from a front office organizational decision-making standpoint is, at what point do you call up these young guns in AAA, Luis May, Zach Maxwell? He's not quite a young gun, but Joe LaSorsa is awesome. At what point do you call those guys up because they might be better than what you have?
Speaking of the minor leagues right now, Rhett Lauder is a guy that was as impressive as he could possibly be. Unexpectedly came up towards the end of last season, obviously dealing with injuries. Is there an update there with Rhett Lauder? Could we see Rhett Lauder in a Reds uniform anytime soon?
Yeah, Rhett Lauder's throwing bullpens in Arizona, ramping up to a rehab assignment. They've taken it slow. He should start a rehab assignment pretty soon. Nothing has happened there. It's just taking it slow with elbow soreness. He'll be in the mix, and they need it because, again, you talk about depth. Actually, what I'm most concerned about is this team's whole AAA rotation is on the IL, and Wade Miley just suffered a setback. And I like Chase Petty, but he's still just 22 years old with barely any AAA experience. So, like, Randy Winn might be their next up starter, and that's not where the Reds wanted to be. They had 5 guys ahead of Randy Winn for a reason. So that's something I'm monitoring for sure, that overall starting pitching depth.
My last question, Charlie. Kenner asked you about the offense. Do you think they're going to be able to sustain this as a whole, as an entire unit right now, assuming that these guys are going to be healthy and ready to play going forward? Do you still have the vibes, the feelings that the Cincinnati Reds could make some noise, whether it be in the wild card or potentially sneaking up on the Cubs and taking this division? As of right now, if this team plays like this and is healthy, could this team be a playoff team?
I'll say this, they feel a lot older and more mature. Like
Yeah.
that's something that's been stressed and reinforced to me and that I've picked up on as well. Like you see that with the veterans they brought in. Elly and McLain feel a lot older. There's been a lot made it. You all have seen it. Hunters and Lodolo too just look a lot older this year. So that helps. Sure. When you have guys like that, I could definitely see this team fighting in the mix. Now, a lot of guys have to sustain it. A lot of guys have to play better. There are still a million things this team has to prove. But sure, they certainly have kind of the experience, the savvy, and the talent to enter this mix and stay competitive.
Charlie Goldsmith giving us some time today talking Cincinnati Reds. We'll turn our attention to the Bengals coming up here in a moment. One thing we've talked about on the show, Charlie, is the fact that, coming into the season, a lot of Reds fans felt that the offseason was very underwhelming. I mean, you start October off with getting Terry Francona, so it just felt like everything was rolling. You trade Jonathan India away to get Brady Singer, and then it just slowed down. Gavin Lux wasn't a sexy name. Same thing with Austin Hayes, and you look at the new additions that they made. They go and they get Trevino, and again, very good name, or not the biggest name class that they had in the offseason. But it is ironic that for a lot of people who thought that there was a very underwhelming offseason as far as new additions to the team, the thought of where this team would be without those underwhelming additions, that's how great these additions have been. Who has been the most surprising to you? Has it been the way Trevino has stepped up in the absence of course, Tyler Stephenson, who I'll ask you about in a moment? Has it been Gavin Lux, who now is getting everyday opportunities? Austin Hayes, who had a down year because of the kidney infection, but now looks like he's returning or at least rising above what his all-star level was 2 years ago. Who's been the biggest surprise to you as far as the contributions are concerned for some of the new guys?
Yeah, I expected Austin Hayes to basically be an upgrade over Stuart Fairchild, to be a right-handed platoon guy who would come in, play solid defense, and hopefully mash against lefties. And Austin Hayes being this team's everyday cleanup hitter, and not just that, like there are real just like tools with him. And you look at him, you look at Austin Hayes. I don't know that you think tools, but there's just real juice, real power, real twitch in what he brings to the table. And he's a cannon in right field. He's one of the smartest players on this team from a base running, heads up overall smart baseball IQ perspective. So, I mean, I've said this before. My biggest criticism of the Reds front office over the years has been one where they have invested their resources from a position player perspective at the major league level in terms of guys they brought in. And two, I've said, just find a guy you like and go get him. And that's exactly what they did this offseason. Very targeted acquisitions at positions of need with specific strengths that they really prioritized. And they hit this year, and that goes a long way.
Austin Wynns, Trevino have been fantastic as far as contributions from the catcher position is concerned. Tyler Stephenson, obviously in the middle of a rehab stint right now. How do you see Tyler Stephenson, Trevino? How do you see the catcher position being managed by Terry Francona when he gets back? It's a good problem to have. Thought one of the biggest absences coming into the season was going to be how the Reds fared without Stephenson to start. But not that saying that they're fine without him, but again, that just shows you how much Wynns has stepped up and Trevino has stepped up. How is that going to be managed when he's ready to be called back for the Reds here anytime now, it seems?
So first, let me say this about Austin Wynns. Austin's a guy who I got to know during spring training last year because, I show up making sure I'm on time for open locker room in the morning, which starts right when the players start to get there. So I get there before the players do. Wynns was the only one who beat me to the building every day, and we had a lot of He's a lot like Vaughn Bell, and you don't really get to know that side of him because, he's been a third-string, second-string catcher. Just a really smart, intense, serious guy that really makes an impact everywhere he's gone. Now, having three catchers, you can ask 2023 Kirk Casale how unfair, how tough, how much of a struggle that can be for the guy who's the third catcher. They're committed to Tyler Stephenson as their catcher. You've got to catch him now. Will you catch him at the same pace right away coming back from the injury? Probably not. But Trevino's already going to have more of kind of an even split anyway, with Stephenson already supposed to be in the DH role more. So, I don't think it's fair to any of these guys to carry three catchers just because there's not enough playing time for them all to catch. And you kind of ending up not maximizing the roster spot that you have, but Wynns has proven what he's capable of in the big league. Stevenson's this team's catcher. And hey, Trevino is one of the top 25, top 20 catchers in baseball. And hey, Fernando Cruz is pitching great too. That was a really kind of rare win-win trade for both sides, the Reds and the Yankees.
Last thing on the Reds, Charlie, and we'll transition over to the Bengals, but Terry Francona, we're 1 month in to the Terry Francona era here in Cincinnati, and a lot's made about, just how much impact do managers truly have on teams. But you go get a big Hall of Fame name like that, obviously a lot of eyes are going to be on him. From David Bell to Terry Francona, in your time covering this team, we're 1 month in. What's the biggest difference you've seen as far as how this team is managed? I mean, has there been a lot of instances in games where you're like, oh, that's different. That's not how it would have been run with David Bell. Are there some moments throughout this season, 1 month in, where you're like, yeah, this team is obviously Terry Francona's group now?
The biggest is the base running. I mean, this is a complete reversal for their base running identity. It's all about smart, targeted opportunities to run the bases, as opposed to letting the guys run just to run. And that's been a complete 180-degree shift. The way I've said it, too, is like, and again, David did a lot well. I think his time in Cincinnati was overall a success. But previously, I saw a game through the lens of that staff as a bunch of individual moments, you know what I mean? Like, get off your best swing and it'll all string together, and kind of, again, a bunch of individual moments. Here I've kept being reinforced, situational, based on what's happened before you, based on what's happened after you, getting down a bunt to set up the next opportunity. It's a lot more looking at the big picture of the game. And again, those are completely, one's more analytical, one's more old school. Those have been kind of the two philosophical shifts that I've seen between these two staffs.